The views and opinions expressed in the following paid program are those of the host, callers, and guests, and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of this station, its management, or owners.
Securities offered through Kestra Investment Services, LLC. Kestra IS, member FINRA SIPC. Investment advisory services offered through Kestra Advisory Services, LLC. Kestra AS, an affiliate of Kestra IS. Capital Advisory Group, Inc. is not affiliated with Kestra IS or Kestra AS. Neither Kestra IS nor Kestra AS provide legal or tax advice and are not certified public accounting firms.
You work hard for your money. For the next hour, you're going to learn how to keep what's yours. Capital Advisory Group presents Keep What's Yours. Here are Josh Gilbert and Jeff Zufall.
Hello and welcome to Keep What's Yours with Jeff Zufall. I'm Josh Gilbert, sitting here with Jeff Zufall, Senior Tax Strategist and Wealth Advisor with Capital Advisory Group. Hello, Jeff.
Hello. Happy Saturday.
And I want to talk today about something my wife sat down and she goes, so what is a 529 plan anyway? And I said, honey, I'm glad you asked because we talk about this all the time on the show. And, you know, I finally got to flex my tax muscles.
That's right.
And what I told her was probably only half of the story anyway. So it's interesting because the more conversation we had about it, she's thinking, what more can we do with our money? It's 2024. It's the beginning of the year, and this is the time. You know, obviously, open enrollment. People always have a discussion about what to do.
What options should we pick? And you know, they spend a lot of time thinking it through.
And that's in October.
Yes.
Right? But this is the beginning of the year, and we spoke last week, planning tips for 2024. How can we kick this year off right? As we get our first paychecks of the year, we take a look at them. We look at the withholdings. You know, let's stop right there because we've got a lot of stuff to do on the show. But I want to take and tackle the topics as they pop up because 529 plan. We'll talk about that. That's the tease. But saving for your kids' schools. What are some of the other options? But as they come up, I want to hit them because this is an important one. First paycheck of the year.
Yes.
What should I look at?
Look at the federal tax withholding and state tax withholding.
Make sure that those are –
So take it – if you get paid weekly, hypothetically you'd have 52 weeks in a year. Mm-hmm. So take whatever that first paycheck of the year is that week, take it times 52 and see what it looks like. Take it back to last year's and what's your difference? Is it more? Is it less? And what you're looking for is your gross income versus the taxes that were withheld. It's that easy.
You just want to make sure that you're having enough taxes withheld. And we always say this on this show. Has anyone ever filed a tax return, Jeff, that was zero? Like they didn't owe money to the IRS. They didn't get anything back.
Well, hypothetically, the only time is when you're older. Maybe all you have is Social Security, but you're filing it as, we'll call it an informational return. Just if there's ever stimulus in the future, they know where you're at. Mm-hmm. That's about the only time. And then there's some people that are just adamant, that are older, adamant about, I'm filing my return. It's all zeros. So you report the income, but there's no tax due.
But otherwise, for the rest of us working stiffs who get paid, we get paid every 2 weeks. Mm-hmm. So I'll multiply that by
26.
There you go. Thank you.
26 pays. So take that tax times 26 pays, whatever that number is, back it into last year and say, hey, is it the same or less? What you're looking for is it's a remote chance that this happens, but we see it every year. Somewhere along the line, they quit taking out federal tax. Somewhere along the line, they quit taking state tax out. And the problem is you don't pay attention to that until you get your W-2 and go, wait a minute, what's wrong? But you owe the tax.
Like next year.
Yeah.
Next year you get your W-2 and you realize you went a whole year.
Without having anything withheld. You went, I don't even know what I was looking at.
And now they're here with a big, their hand, the big bucket.
Saying, you owe us money. We've seen it on the state side, and we don't understand how it happens on your withholding, but somehow they change it. Or maybe you filled out a W-4, you filled it out wrong, nobody helped you, and you went to zero. One we see is pensions. A lot of people, they'll fire up. They'll especially like Missouri state teachers. For whatever reason, they will force you to pick a number for federal tax, but the state tax, they don't even worry about it.
And this is the problem. Truly, is we don't know that this happens. We didn't ask for it to happen. It just happened.
Yes.
Or like you said, maybe I filled out my W. I'm not trying to not pay state taxes.
It's a oopsie.
Yeah.
But it's too late by the time you realize it.
My employer or the state or something kicked me off, and they say, "Well, hey, man, that stinks."
Yeah, but you owe the tax. Have a nice day.
You still owe us money.
And remember the underpayment penalty for income that you earned. It is 8% a quarter. So that's the penalty or the interest going forward on the tax that you would have owed. So if you owe $1,000 at the end of the day, they do 8% a quarter, coming all the way forward.
Oh my gosh!
So it used to be back in the day when interest rates weren't, you could get free money basically. It was 1.2, 2.5 tops. And we used to go, don't worry about it. It's not that big of a deal. They're not going to really get you for much. Today, yes, you have to pay it, and you have to pay it on time because otherwise it's 8% a quarter rolling.
So not only do you owe them their money,
but
you were supposed to pay them, but now you owe them penalties and fees on top of that, and tax on top of tax.
And a lot of people do not realize that they're like, hey, I paid the tax. It's like, great, but since you owed that tax, there's now interest on top of the tax. It's a tax on top of a tax.
So you want to look at your first paycheck of the year and just make sure that all the withholdings look right.
Exactly. And then if you do a 401k, just do the calculation that you're looking at times, if you get paid weekly, it's 52. If it's biweekly, it's 26, and see what it adds up to for the year.
Take a look at your 401k. Take a look at are you doing a Roth? Take a look at that. And then I would say, are you doing a 529? That comes right out of our paycheck, right?
Well, 529 doesn't. 529 is going to be after tax that you're going to do personally.
Oh, okay.
I mean, some employers, and I say this, very, very few will set up as 529 as like a fringe benefit for the employees, but very few because they get involved in it's after tax, but then they have to deduct it, feed it through, send it off to the 529, and most employers don't want to.
Well, my Roth is after tax.
Yes,
and they still
same
take
concept.
that out.
Yeah. Well, but it's inside the 401k though.
Oh, gotcha.
So it's a Roth 401k is the deciding factor there.
So then at your withholdings are good. You took a look at your what you're adding to your 401k, and you've umped it 1%.
Hopefully 1%. 2%.
2%. You say, I got a little wiggle room.
Yeah.
Then you take a look and you see, do I have enough money to pay my bills, buy my food,
and then
have a little left over for
This is the perfect time of the year on a cold Saturday or Sunday. Sit down and build a budget.
Oh, gosh. Oh, Jeff.
It's worse than doing your taxes.
I would, budget. I hate that.
But beginning of the year, and what you're looking for is just to give you a good idea. I mean, there's people, I see people that literally could tell you where they spent last 2 cents. Seriously, last month.
I am not one of those people.
But then there's other people who could say, yeah, I kind of know the number, but it's not to an exact science. And then there's other people that go, I don't know, is there money in my account?
Do you know, right now, how much money is in your checking account?
Yes.
Like exactly?
I'm a freak about that, yes.
Like I have a rough idea. Like maybe. Like I could get within $100.
I can't go because from a personal standpoint, I could tell you to the penny, seriously, and I watch it like a hawk. Debit cards sneak up on you. I mean,
is that because you have kids that?
No, I mean most of my kids are
charge stuff.
Well, they did.
Your grandson was playing on the iPad, and
figured out how the code was, and figured out how to get in there and buy his what do they call that, Fortnite or whatever the game was, and bought a whole bunch of stuff one weekend. Because he watched me do it, and I was like, well, that's genius that he figured the code out and could do numbers. So.
All right, I just looked up my checking account.
Yeah, but personal, I know where it's at. Business, maybe every Friday, I'm keyed in on where we're at, big picture, which does freak me out a little bit because I go a whole week without really knowing what's going on there, and then they bring me up to date on Fridays.
Yeah,
as to here's your bills, here's what you got.
boy, I thought I had more than this. But you know what? I was within $100.
Exactly. So you're good.
$100.
But again, going back to the budget scenario, the theory on a budget, what you're looking for is, again, it's not this limit that you can't go to dinner and you can't go out and have fun and have entertainment.
I don't like doing a budget because it lets me know that, boy, am I really wasting my money. Or it lets me know, man, do I really owe a lot of money to
that too.
people.
But if you sat down and you said, here's what I project for the month, okay? Just you sit down and put everything together and scribble it on a piece of paper. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. Scribble it on a piece of paper and then say, here's what I actually spent. And maybe every 2 weeks, go back, fill in the blanks. Anything that you pay the first 2 weeks of the month, scribble out exactly what you paid. And what you will find is there's months where you have a 5-week month, hypothetically, you're going to spend more money, period. But your paycheck is going to kind of stay the same as you go forward. So that's what you're looking for is utilization of your cash as you move forward.
Is a budget something that we want to do monthly, quarterly? Do I want to do a yearly budget?
Technically,
weekly?
I have a budget that's laid out for the next 12 months that starts January, has every item and this is personal and a business one.
I didn't realize you were so...
Yeah, I'm a freak about it.
Yeah.
I tried giving that to my wife. It didn't work because I was micromanaging her. She was like, you take it back. I'm not touching this anymore. I'd be like, hey, what about this? And she'd be like, leave me alone. So,
so do it as best you can.
Exactly. And
causing a rift.
Yeah, and some people will get real intense into it, but it's build a spreadsheet. I have exactly what I'm projecting, what my expenses will be
for the whole year,
for the month of January, and every month from there on out. So to give you an idea, I have a property tax bill, but it's not due till December. So it's plugged in December. I know I have to pay X amount. I have insurance that comes in June or July. I have that plugged in July. So I know month to month, I may have a good month where I get off cheap, if you want to call it that, and I have a really bad month where it seems like 6 things all pile up in the same month. That's all you're looking for. Then you can project it out and go, ooh, I need a lot more money in June and July because of those expenses. Birthdays, most people blow that off. You might spend $100, on your children, grandkids, friends. Plug it in and just say, hey, approximately $100 a month for this birthday. You at least get a good expectation on what you're going to need.
I'm the kind of person, and this is probably going to drive you crazy, especially since you are my tax strategist and wealth advisor personally, full disclosure. I'm the kind of person that flies by the seat of my pants, and if I open up my bank account app and there's money in there, I'm like, all right.
We're good to go.
There's money in there? I'm doing a great job.
So maybe before you open the bank, go create a little spreadsheet. Could be on a piece of paper, notebook paper, nothing fancy. And look at that and go, hey, how close are we to the actual budget this month? And it's not that you're going to say, you don't want to play the game where you go, we can't go to dinner this week or next week or for the next 2 months because we overspent. It's the ability to build that stuff in and know it's coming. And if you're give or take, I'll call it 10% per month, you're good to go. That's life.
Yeah. So I guess the idea is do a budget.
Yes. Just scribble something on a piece of paper.
Scribble it down and just get yourself a rough idea.
And you can go, wow.
And I bet the more that we do this, the deeper we're going to want to get into it.
Weird stuff like, and this is just me, I'm old school, so cable boxes. We had, I don't know how many TVs in our house. Yeah. And I got a cable box tied to every one and a Roku stick jammed in there.
And they want $10 every month.
No, it's $11.99 per month. So
for each box.
Each box. I figured that out, and I'm like, well, why do I have a cable box when I'm watching, the Spectrum app on
Roku?
I'm like, why? So those went back. But you won't see that unless you open your cable bill and actually read the second page and look at what they're charging you. And then you go, hey, wait a minute, so.
So, Brenda, we look at this, and we've got a budget, and we're looking at what we have, and ultimately what we want to know. And I think I think for me, the best thing would be is to just what do I owe as a mortgage? What do I owe as my cars?
So that's building a net worth scenario. So this is strictly, hey, what's my house payment?
Yeah.
What's my car payment?
Okay. Yeah.
When are my plates due on my car?
Yeah.
Is it this year? Is it, every year? Is it every, I think, 2 years or something like that? I don't know. I guess it's optional. And then you say that's going to cost me for the inspection and all the registration $105. Plug it in. And it could be 2 years in the future in the month of August when your plates are due, but you got an extra $105 coming at that point in time. It's that simple. And it doesn't have to be – I've seen some fancy ones on Excel spreadsheets with all the – I don't know what you want to call them, the calculations or formulas built into it. So if you change it, it re-adds it and does all that stuff. It's cool, but you don't need that. You really don't. Piece of paper will do it.
So we start getting our budget together, and I think I'm like you, actually. I'm not competitive at all. But once I get going, I try
you dig into it, yeah.
I'm like, hey, honey, let's put the cable boxes on there, too, and see
right.
what's doing.
See what it is.
We could cut 3 of those out,
Yeah, it's just weird stuff like that.
Yeah, how much did we pay for the gasoline for the lawnmower this month? I'm going to get real into it. But me and my wife are on a diet. And it's a point system. Mm-hmm. And I'm trying to get lower in the points. So I'm starving myself just so I can go home and say, how many points did you eat today? I only had 4, and I'm barely standing up.
Yeah, I last a day on that stuff. I'm like, give me a Whopper.
But I think budgeting would be just like that as well. I would look at it as a game.
It is.
How much can I keep? How much can I save?
To save, yeah.
How much can I?
And again, it's not the fact that you want to cut everything out. You could do that, but life gets really boring if you're just sitting around watching, the old school 5 channels on TV.
I know, but it's also something like, where the heck is my money going? Why do
that's the other side, yeah. Why
do we have HBO Max when we don't ever watch it?
So the other thing is, how many subscription services do you have rolling today that you go, oh, yeah, I forgot about that? Apple Music, and what was the other one? There's 2 or 3 of them that I forgot about.
Spotify. To join Pandora Plus, all these things.
All these weird little things, and it's only $9.99 a month.
I did a 3-month trial period. Yeah, and then they started charging.
They hit your card, yeah. So that's where you see the emergence of these apps that say, hey, we can help you, save you a ton of money. The app actually goes out there. I think it actually scours your credit card bills, because that's the trick. You see a Amazon charge or an Apple charge, but you don't know what it is.
Yeah,
it's just a flat charge, and you're like, wait, what is that? And it takes you 3 hours to figure out what it is.
So I'm one of these people that not only do I not know what's in my current checking account, but I never really look at the charges. So I did go back one time and look at it, and I did see a discrepancy. And it's not like somebody was robbing me or whatever, and somebody stole my card. It was me. I was robbing myself. I had signed up for something, and I was like, I never use this.
I did that for tons of stuff where I'd sign up, and you got to put a credit card to get in. I refuse to do it anymore unless I know I'm going to use it, because I forget about it. Get busy. And then they ding you 3, 4, 5 months, and you're like, hey, wait. And you go to pull it back. Well, you paid 3, 4, 5 months of the fee that you shouldn't have. So
Right. All right. So here we go. Back to the story. You're looking at your paycheck, your first paycheck of the year. You've done your budget. You realize I have a little bit more to play with than I thought.
Yes.
Then what? Now what? What do you do?
Create an emergency fund. So that would be an emergency fund. It could be
I'm running out of money.
It could be a savings account. It could be anything. Some people use the old envelope system. You put $50 in there and set it aside. It's a rainy day fund, but create an emergency fund. And typically, what you want, I say from the financial planning inspector, as they say, 6 months, of income, and not that 6 months has to be sitting in a bank account waiting. Because you're not going to make any interest. Well, you'll make a little bit better interest today, but not what you should. You could have, and again, you're not going to spend 6 months all in the first month that if you lost your job or something like that. So 2 months on hand. The rest could be sitting maybe in a brokerage account but not invested, because you might need that money in 3 or 4 months, and it never fails about the time you reach into the brokerage account and say, hey, I need $3,000 because, I lost my job. That's now worth $1,000 because the market took a tank on you. So the concept would be some type of an emergency fund sitting out there, savings account, but at least have maybe a month to 2 months on hand that you can readily get access to. If the transmission of the car goes out, if your furnace blows up one day, especially when it's minus 32 degrees outside and your tile floor is ice cold for 3 days straight.
Sounds like a personal experience.
Yes, just like last week. We were using space heaters.
Oh, man.
And thank God I had a gas fireplace that kept it warm until the guy came and he goes, oh, all you're going to do is just knock on this gas thing here. And I'm like, yeah, right, that's not going to happen. So So fix it.
Fix it.
But again, just create that emergency fund. And it could be, if you have the dual income, it's easier, I guess, really, because you always have that second income coming in the door. Flip side is once you get past a couple of months in reserves, then you could go park it on brokerage accounts. You could do, ultra short bond funds, something of that effect, where you get a little bit more money, earnings in a sense going forward. And after you got 6 months, 5-6 months packed away of income, then you could go crazy investing, do your thing. Because you know that you may not need that for a while, hopefully, if all goes well.
That's the fun part. I have extra money, and now I get to do something fun with it.
Exactly.
So we'll talk about what to do in the next segment, and one of those things is a 529. And my question that I sat down with my wife, and we talked about it over the weekend, she wanted to know the ins and outs of the 529, and I think by the end of our conversation, we realized maybe this isn't for us. Are there other things out there we could do for our kids if we don't want to lock it into, say, a school fund?
Mm-hmm.
What else can we do? We'll talk about that. It is Keep What's Yours with Jeff Zufall. And if you've heard anything here, I know nobody likes to budget, but it really helps. I know nobody really wants to look at their money because every time they look at it, it's lower than they think it is. But by paying attention to it, it might start to be higher.
It will help you going forward, seriously.
It'll help you going forward, and it's the first month of the year. Let's make sure that our withholdings are correct so we don't get a big surprise at tax time next year. Let's make sure that we're putting enough away. What's the phrase? Pay yourself first.
Pay yourself first, yes.
Get enough put away for your 401k, for your IRA, for your Roth, whatever it is that you've got saving up. Make sure you pay yourself first, and it's a new year. So if you can budget it, tick that up 1 or 2%.
Exactly.
You'll thank yourself, 20 years from now.
You will. You most definitely. What do you reference? Future Josh will say, thank you.
Future Josh. Whoa. Hey, it was lean times back then, but now it's high cotton.
That's right.
Land of milk and honey. Your future self will thank you. And just make sure that you've got enough money going forward. And if there's a little left over, make sure you're putting it in the right spots. And we'll tell you what those spots could possibly be in the next segment. It is Keep What's Yours with Jeff Zufall. If you like what you've heard, give Jeff a call, 636-394-5524, 636-394-5524. Capital Advisory Group is where Jeff works, and CapitalAdvisoryGrp.com is the website. Senior tax strategist and wealth advisor, and full disclosure, he's my senior tax strategist and wealth advisor. Jeff Zufall, Keep What's Yours. We'll be back right after this.
Keep What's Yours continues with Josh Gilbert and Jeff Zufall.
Back to the show, back to Keep What's Yours, trying to tell you how to keep more of your money in your pocket and on your paycheck, and look at that paycheck stub. And every time you get paid, not just the first paycheck of the year, which is what we were talking about, but every time you get paid, just peek at it.
Yep.
It takes 10 seconds.
Yeah.
And will we know if something's out of order? Will we know if something is wrong?
Yeah, if you're missing items on there, 401k contribution, federal tax, state tax, you really won't understand the FICA, which is your Medicare, Medicare and your Social Security. But again, look at it. Just make sure that they're on there.
And if
compare it to last year's W-2 if you saved it.
Yeah. So just take a look and make sure that those numbers are normal. Because if it comes to the end of the year and you haven't been paying state tax all year,
you got an issue.
That's not the IRS's problem. That's not Missouri's problem.
That's yours.
That's your problem.
You'll owe that plus penalties.
So if you have money left over, what can we do with it? And one of the things that we've been talking about recently is the 529 plan. And just briefly tell us what that is again.
So a 529 plan is going to be after-tax dollars that you put into a 529. The concept is it's used for college education or future educational cost. So if you have a child, again, you need a child for this, you start it, you put it in.
Because it's tied to their
Social Security number, technically. You are the owner, so as a parent, you are the owner of the plan. The child is the beneficiary. And
since it is their Social Security number, can I do a 529? Can my wife do one? Can my mom do one?
Everybody could do. You could have 10 different 529s
for the same kid.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and the key to it is this: is the state of Missouri, and I believe the state of Illinois, Arkansas, and possibly I think Iowa. Don't quote me on that. Will give you a 5% credit up to $16,000 that you fund into whoever the owner is funds into the 529.
Up to $16,000.
$16,000
over the life of that?
Every year.
Every year.
Every year as you go forward. So you get basically a 5% credit on the first $16,000. The concept on it is this is money that grows tax deferred, which means you do not pay any current income tax annually, year in, year out. One of the perks, which it didn't have originally, but it does today, is the fact that if you need, private elementary, you need additional money to pay for private high school, college, tutors, new iPads, new computers, room and board, any of that stuff, you could take it out of the 529 plan. Tax-free. Elementary and high school, it's up to $10,000 per year. And then when you get to college, it's unlimited. Mm-hmm. So the concept is as long as it's used for higher education, schooling of some sort, trade schools apply. Used to be an accredited school, but now it's basically everybody that's out there. You don't pay tax on it.
So like Flo Valley, Merrimack,
they all
the community
count.
Colleges, they count.
Yeah, your courses. Maybe you took a calculus class and you were like, "Eeks, I need it to get my degree." But you don't get it, and you got to hire a tutor to help you get through the class. That's part of the plan.
Oh, you can pay the tutor.
Yes.
Interesting.
So room and board. So room and board, you go to Mizzou. Just pick a Mizzou, and you lived on campus your freshman year.
I lived
in the
dorms.
Dorms. And then you moved.
We didn't have air conditioning.
Prison walls.
Yeah.
Then you had to actually move off campus with your buddies, and you guys rented a house, and everything was fine. The key is you could take the highest, so the Ritz-Carlton, whatever the Ritz-Carlton of the dorms are in Mizzou,
gosh, yeah.
Whatever they cost, that's the maximum that you could deduct from your rent.
Johnston back in the day. I don't know what it's called.
I don't know what it is today.
Yeah,
either.
Wolpers.
But you could use that to pay room and board. So
really?
Your actual rent.
Whatever the highest rent would go. And Mark Twain down at Mizzou had a pool.
Yeah.
An outdoor pool. Holy cow.
My daughter looked at or went to Cape. And in Cape there was literally back then it was like the Ritz-Carlton. It was one of the newest dorms that were created. And it was like, wow. But everybody wanted in there versus, the other ones were literally prison cells.
I got to tell you this, Jeff. The dumps that we lived in off campus
should have been condemned.
Right. Cost way less than the highest dorm fees. So that will cover.
Yeah. So your 529 could cover that.
The rent.
Yeah. So and that's put on the tax return or explained on the tax return in detail. But again, that's what the 529 plan. So the concern is, what if I get out there and my kid's, a goofball and decides not to go to school, or they go into the armed services and they get a free ride, hypothetically,
right.
But you as the parent don't have to pay, and you got all this money in this 529 plan.
Or what if they're such good students,
get free rides,
that they get scholarships?
Yes. So you go, man, I saved all this money and now I can't really use it for higher education. Well, first option is if you have younger children, you could drop down, change beneficiaries, put it in their name.
Give it to one of the other kids.
One of the other kids could use it. But let's say they're a brainiac too, and they're good to go.
Billy, you got lucky. Your older brother didn't want to go to college.
Yeah. So you can go to Harvard now.
Otherwise, you would have had to toil in the mines.
Yeah. So, but again, let's say that all the kids get free rides, and you're stuck with all this money in this 529 plan. You're like, man, that was a waste. There is a new law for 2024, first year out of the box, that says you could take 6 up to whatever the beneficiary's age is. So if they're under 49, it's going to be $6,500, and you can convert dollars from your 529 to a Roth in the child's name. So yes, you're giving them part of their college money, but it's better than sometimes taking out and paying tax on earnings and 10% penalty.
All right, so let me understand how this works again. The 529 works like my Roth does. The money goes in after I get my paycheck, they take my taxes out, and then it goes into the 529.
Exactly.
But inside that, like a Roth, it will grow
tax deferred.
So whatever I make on it, if it was in a traditional brokerage account, I would have to pay
each year. You would pay tax on if you sold something. You pay capital gain, capital loss, dividend income, interest income, and you'd pay that annually on it, which would stunt the growth of won't stunt the growth of the actual portfolio because you're really not taking the tax money out. You're paying that from another source. Mm-hmm. But 529 grows tax deferred, so you never pay capital gains. You never pay, and you can invest whatever you want to invest inside of it. Missouri Most had a great program. It's got T. Rowe Price, Vanguard, Fidelity.
I told my wife about the Peter Thiel story.
Yeah, exactly.
He put all of his PayPal stock in a Roth.
Yep.
And this is back when PayPal, nobody ever heard of it.
Pennies on the
and now it's worth, the whole thing is worth $5 billion. And as long as he follows the rules of the Roth,
he's good to go.
It appreciated, and he doesn't owe the capital gains. I'm sure the government's going to come back and
there
try to
was
squeeze
the tax that was a wealth tax that's saying if you have an IRA, Roth, some type of a tax-deferred account, and it's greater than I think it was $10 million, you pay an annual tax just because you were successful and you got a $10 million IRA. So,
but the rules of the Roth is 5 years of 59 and a half.
Whichever's longer.
I gotta follow that rule with my Roth.
That's for earnings only. So whatever you put in a Roth, you could take back out a week later.
Anytime I want.
Yeah, it's after tax.
But the earnings, if I really want to make them tax free, if Peter Thiel really wants tax free $5 billion, he has to wait until 59 and a half. How does it? If the 529 is just a Roth like structure, how does that work when my son turns 18 and he wants to go to school?
Because technically you are the owner, so then you would release that money to the school as it goes. As the bills come in, you'd release it out.
And the structure is very similar, but there's no 59 and a half. There's whenever you're using it for school.
Exactly. If your child decides to wait and go to school when they're 25, so be it.
Maybe I put $25,000 in there, but I picked a good fund, and the markets were good, and now it's $50,000. Yeah. All that's his. He doesn't have to pay any taxes on it as long as it goes
used for school
or
rent associated.
Or so this is good. This is great. Yeah. But do you warn people don't overfund a 529? I mean, what if there's a $200,000 in there?
Well, that's what I mean.
It's going to med school.
That's the case. A couple of them we've done. I guess there's already 6 or 7 that we've actually done the $6,500, pulled it out, and have it sent to the kids' Roth. Because they've overfunded, they don't need it. Mm-hmm. Again, it's going to take forever to get that $6,500 out. So it's $6,500 up to $35,000 total that you could pull out of the 529, move it to a Roth, even if they don't have income. So one of the things is I'll just do a Roth IRA for my kid instead of a 529. The kid needs income. That's the trick. So if he's a 15-year-old not working, you can't do a Roth because he needs earned income up to $6,000 or $6,500 to be able to put $6,500 into a Roth.
All right. So these again, if you need help with all of this, Jeff is here for you. 636-394-5524, Capital Advisory Group. Here's the discussion I had with my wife. I told her, if we don't use it all for school, or he gets a full ride, or he serves his country in the military and gets the GI Bill and doesn't have to pay for school, Or, he wisens up and goes to a community college or goes to a trade school.
Doesn't spend.
And starts making more money than I ever did. And that is a lot less than what we saved up for.
Yes.
There's going to be money left over. And I tell her we can roll it into a Roth for him. Can you imagine a kid saying, hey, turning 59 and a half or 65. Oh, my gosh, I have so much in retirement because my parents
took care of it.
Started a retirement fund for myself.
That's called time value of money. So you put $1 away today versus if you waited 10 years, you'd have to put $100 away.
I didn't start saving until I was 38.
Exactly.
And, Finn's got a retirement fund that started when he was 1.
Exactly.
So obviously time value of money, it's working a lot better for him than it is for me. But I told my wife this. I said, if he doesn't use it all for college or if he gets a full ride I want him to be able to use that cash for, and this is my thought, for a down payment on a 2-family flat in South City. He can live on the first floor and rent out the top, or he can live on the top floor.
Rent out the bottom.
And rent out the bottom, because that is something that I always wish I did.
Yes.
Because by the time you're ready to move into your first single-family starter house,
got some equity built up.
You've got some equity. You can either sell it and put the down payment. You can keep it and count
rent
it
both of them out
as income.
Yep.
That's the thing that my biggest regret, Jeff, is all those years I paid rent that went nowhere. So inside of 529, he technically couldn't use that money for that. So what I told my wife was I'd like to save money for his education, but also have it be more of a slush fund that we could use for anything.
Yes.
And I don't want him to buy a car at 16.
Well, see,
because that's depreciating. That will never.
Here's your issue: is then you could flip it and you could put it into a joint account that you and your wife control. It's not in his name because you got to be. I think it's age of majority in state of Missouri is 18 or 21. So you'd have to be of age to sign a contract, so he couldn't open an account. Mm-hmm. So you guys would open an account, regular brokerage account, keep it segregated to the side, put money into it, but you guys annually pay capital gains tax.
Right.
You pay dividend income.
It's not going to have the beneficial structure of a Roth like a 529 would. It's not going to have the Missouri Most 5%.
Yeah, there's nothing out there. Just whatever you can earn is yours. But you also have the ability at any point in time to pull the money and do whatever you want to do with it. So if at 18, 20, you bought him a house, he goes to Mizzou, you buy him a house, and he lives there free because you rent 4 other bedrooms out to his buddies, you're making tons of money. Mm-hmm. So that's one way to do it. But remember, long term, if you create a capital gain, you guys have to, as the parents, have to pay the tax on it.
Right.
Okay. Then the other source would be what's called an UGMA.
Can I carve out something that said, "Hey, son, we've been paying taxes on this for 18 years. You owe us."
You could try, but he'd probably be like, "Too bad. That's your problem. Give me my money."
Okay.
But you do an UGMA, which is a Uniform Gift to Minors Act.
UGMA.
So it puts it in the
beautiful name.
It puts it in the child's name, but you or your wife or both of you are the owners of that account. You can put money into it. From a tax standpoint, he can make up to, I believe this year, I think what last year was $1,500. And that would be a kiddie tax. So literally doesn't pay tax on the first $1,000 or $1,500 that's in that account. But once they exceed that, then it defaults automatically to your tax bracket. So capital gains would be 15 or 20%. Dividend income would be whatever your ordinary income is.
24%.
Yeah. Or if it's preferred, it gets a little preferential treatment. So that's one way to do it. But the problem is when the child turns 18, state of Missouri, that money is theirs. And there's nothing you can do to stop them because the account has to be flipped over, put in their name, and then they own it.
Well, he's going to want to buy a motorcycle.
Exactly. Go buy a Harley or some goofy thing.
He's going to want to blow it on stupid stuff.
Mm-hmm. And so and hypothetically, let's say that I had that account. We did great. He made a ton of money. He turns of age. We got to do the paperwork. We flip it over, put it in his name. And he calls me the next day and says, "Give me all my money."
Drain it.
Technically, I can't call you because it's conflict of interest. I cannot call you as the parent and say, hey, be worried, or go smack them upside the head.
You can't even let me know.
No. Legally, I can't.
Wow.
So
we're friends, Jeff.
Well, I know. But legally, I can't because if it's his account.
Wow.
So the trick when we do that, when we do have UGMAs like that and we flip them over, we put it to where it goes into a joint account with the parents. So the parents are still on there. They still have some association to it. They could. So if he does call and say, hey, I want my money, I can legally call you and go, hey, go, hit him in the head one time and notify you, and you can try and stop him. But the way that a joint account works is that's still 50-50.
And does the UGMA have, it sounds like my options are somewhat limited.
They are.
But does the UGMA have any benefits to it other than just a straight-up brokerage
Just
account?
The whole concept is it's deemed money that you have gifted or given to your child. Mm-hmm. Kitty tax is the only kicker, is the first $1,000, $1,200 you're really not paying tax on. But once it exceeds it, it defaults back to your tax bracket.
But if I want to do an account that I'm dumping money in, and this is strictly for housing, for setting him up to own a rental property in his future, again, I wish somebody would have done this for me. Thanks a lot, Mom and Grandma. But if I want to do it, then I just need to open up.
You open up just a regular brokerage account. You put money in there.
Pay the regular taxes.
Pay the tax on it, call it a day, and go forward. So remember, there's 3 types of accounts. There's taxable account, which means you pay annual tax. You're going to pay something at the end of every year. Interest, dividends, capital gain, capital loss. So you can either record a gain and pay tax on it or record a loss and take a deduction. You have tax-deferred accounts, which are your 529s, your 401ks, IRAs, Roths, which means you put money in there, typically pre-tax. You don't pay any current income tax over time because it grows tax deferred, and when you take it out, you pay tax. All you did was put the taxation off a bit. Mm-hmm. Then you have tax-free accounts, which is your true Roths, technically maybe housing. So as long as you don't exceed married filing jointly today, $500,000 in gains, you pay no tax on your primary residence sale.
Right.
So again, there's just look at it as those 3 buckets of money as you go forward.
All right, so those are my options. So there are benefits to putting money in a Roth. There are benefits to putting money in a 401k,
Definitely.
an IRA. There's benefits
and
to
maybe
the 529.
Maybe it's a combination of one versus the other.
But there are rules that you have to abide by.
So one of them, if you own a business, you could hire your child as long as they are actually going to do deemed work. And it would have to be in writing.
Here's a broom. Use it.
Take the trash out, file, maybe depending upon – I mean, most people are like, hey, my kid's 1. Can I put him on payroll? It's like, no. You can't do that.
Well, he's the mascot.
Yeah. Well, it could be. Could be, photoshopping, pictures or something. But, yeah, you could do something as long as you have a justifiable scenario. Mm-hmm. But you pay him a salary. So typically you pay him $6,500, which is just enough to park it into a Roth. So you're getting a deduction to pay it from your company as an employee, as long as they have I'll call it a job. And then at the same token, you could fund that money right back into a Roth for them because then they have earned income, and then you could do a Roth.
Interesting. Well, these are all options that are out there, and the government has set aside certain accounts that we could save money in because they don't want us to be penniless when we're 70. They want us to be self-sufficient because if we are, they don't have to do it.
They just want you to create income that you pay tax on.
Yeah, and there's that as well.
And you are a number producing income to them.
Right. Make your citizens make money for you.
Exactly.
So the government has it figured out. We just need to figure it out. And that's how you do it. You get Jeff Zufall on your side. 636-394-5524. 636-394-5524. If you're like me and you're like, well, I want to set up an account for my son, but I want him to have some flexibility over here. Yeah. I want him to have some for school, but if he doesn't go to school, I need to know what we can use it for. The idea is that he's going to be a place kicker at Harvard.
There you go.
Full ride scholarship. He's going to be on the football team, but he's not going to get his head smashed.
That's right.
So that's the dream. But what if we don't get there, Jeff?
Exactly.
I need to have a contingency
You got to
plan.
have option B and C ready to go, just in case. So maybe it's a combination. One year you do your UGMA account. The next year you do a little bit in a 529, and then you do a regular brokerage account third year, and then you keep rotating back as you go forward. You'll have the assets for them at a later date, and then you get to play one to the other. So what if you did that, and you get out to 17, and then he really does say, well, I didn't score too good on my ACT, and my GPA isn't that spectacular.
Well, you don't have a lot of confidence in myself.
Not at all, no. And you go, we are going to have to pay for college. Take the money from your brokerage account, feed it into the 529, and then pay tuition from there.
So this is why Jeff's here and gives out his phone number all the time, 636-394-5524. When something like this happens, I set that up 18 years ago, and here we are. And then now you know what's going to happen. You call Jeff and say, all right, so we're going to Mizzou.
Here's our numbers.
He's got a partial scholarship. What's next?
How do we pay for it?
How do we pay for it?
And then you start to move money around, do what you need to do.
And what do I need to move where to make it most tax beneficial? And by that I mean pay the least amount of taxes.
Amount that you're legally obligated to pay.
And that's the name of the show. Keep What's Yours. Keep What's Yours with Jeff Zufall. 636-394-5524 and online. You can find him, CapitalAdvisoryGrp.com. We'll go to break and come back. Wrap this one up on the Big 550 KTRS.
Keep What's Yours continues with Josh Gilbert and Jeff Zufall.
Back on the show, not a lot of time left, but if you need assistance or you want to call Jeff and you want to get him on board, 636-394-5524. We were just joking in the commercial break. What if I find out my son wants to run off and join the circus? How do I? Jeff, I need to get that money out of his name.
Quickly.
Yeah, he's going to the bank now. He's going to take it all out and blow it. Just set yourself up in a way now that 18 years from now you don't have to make that phone call.
And you have options. You have option A, option B, option C, and you get to move money around.
And if I wanted to change it quarterly,
you could do that.
Jeff just needs to be there and say, well, just make sure you're not causing unexpected
taxation. Exactly.
On this.
Yes.
So, stop moving your money around for no reason because you're paying taxes every time you do it. All right. Now, gift tax. Is gift tax a thing?
It is a thing. So, again, since we're on this, hey, the kids are going to go to school, blah, 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 and you go, I may have to gift them money. So, literally, we get this phone call all the time going, hey, Johnny's going to school. I'm going to give him $10,000. Do I have to report it? And the answer is no. You could give anybody up to $18,000 a year per Social Security number and never have to even worry about reporting it. No one does. The person giving the money and the person receiving the money, as long as it does not exceed $18,000. And that's the gift tax.
Anybody. It doesn't have to be family members.
No, it could be the neighbor down the street. You want to give them $18,000 because they took your trash out. That'd be nice to be able to do that.
A random radio host that you love to listen to.
Send $18,000. You don't have nobody reports it on either side. Now, if you exceed $18,000, yes, you have to start what's called a gift tax return, and you pay tax on it. Now, it gets a little technical, but let's say that you really did. You bought the two-family, and when Finn's 20, you're going to give it to him. And you go, here's this two-family I bought for you. You can live in one side, rent the other out. And you give that to him, or you gift it to him. You then have to fill out a gift tax return. And the way the tax laws sit today, no, you wouldn't have to pay tax on it because you fill this form out and say, I am gifting this money, but I'm going to use it against what's called my unified credit. So everybody, I think 2024 is $12.7 million that you get.
Oh, wow.
So you give them this two-family.
Well, that house isn't that nice.
Well, you give them this two. So here's the trick. The two-family is worth $200,000.
Sure.
You gift it to them. You fill a form out and say, I'm gifting them this property. This is the appraised value. Here's the appraisal, blah, blah, blah. You fill it all out, sign it, send it into the IRS. That $200,000 gift that you gave Finn goes against your $12.7 million unified credit. It's that simple. You don't pay tax on it. He doesn't pay tax on it. The trick, though, is maybe, just maybe, there is a debate out there. all of Trump's tax laws sunset 2025, and the fear is that goes from 12.7 to $1 million, $6 million, nobody knows.
Right.
So if you've used, say, $5 million of your unified credit up.
Is that a lifetime unified
it's lifetime.
credit? Lifetime.
Yeah. So you could run into the snag of if they lower that amount and you've already used, of the 12.7, you use $6 million in gifts, and then they lower it to $5 million, you have an issue, which means the day you die, you pay death tax.
Yeah. Yep.
So it's a huge, that gets into the estate planning techniques, what to do, what not to do. But literally, we get that phone call, and what the phone call says is, well, I'm going to give Johnny $10,000. Can I deduct that on my tax return? And no, you may not.
Yeah. What is it, before we go, what is it, 12 points?
12.7 million is what's called unified credit.
I can assure you I will never have to call you with that problem.
There's people that hit that number. You'd be amazed.
Yeah.
But again, and that's per person. But it's $18,000 per year that you could give away. You don't take a deduction.
They don't claim it.
Don't
I don't
claim
either.
it. Yeah.
All right. How about that? Keep what's yours with Jeff Zufall. I'm Josh Gilbert, 636-394-5524, CapitalAdvisoryGrp.com. Jeff is my senior tax strategist and wealth advisor, and he can be yours as well. Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you.
See ya.
See ya.
You've been listening to Keep What's Yours with Josh Gilbert and Jeff Zufall, Senior Tax Strategist and Wealth Manager at Capital Advisory Group. To learn more, call 636-394-5524 or visit CapitalAdvisoryGrp.com. The views and opinions expressed in the preceding paid program are those of the host, callers, and guests, and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of this station, its management, or owners.